Hunting is at home, engrossed in a book. His close friend, Chucky Sullivan, arrives to pick him up. Will hops into the car, and they drive off. Together. At MIT, Professor Gerald assigns his students a theorem to solve by the semester's end, promising that the solver's achievement will be published in the MIT newspaper. Will works as a janitor at MIT. The theorem is displayed on a board in the hallway. While quietly mopping the floor, Will glances at the questions on the board with curiosity after the students leave. Later, Will and Chucky visit a bar. Although Will is in a cheerful mood, he decides to leave early. He heads home to work on the theorem he noticed earlier. The next day, while performing his cleaning duties, he continues to solve the theorem on the board. Will and Chucky play baseball, with Will repeatedly hitting Chucky and complaining about him crowding the plate. Chucky mentions a trip to a Harvard bar next week, and Will seems to agree. Meanwhile, Gerald attends an MIT alumni reunion, where his students inquire about the individual who solved the theorem. He is taken aback to find the solution written on the board and asks various students if they were the ones who solved it, but no one steps forward. At a baseball game, Will, Chucky, Morgan, and Billy spot Will's childhood bully among the crowd. They leave to grab food, but while driving, they see Will's bully acting up again. The group confronts him, leading to a fight, and the police arrive to arrest Will. Back in class, Gerald notices an unusually high number of students present, all eager to learn about the theorem solver. He calls for the mysterious individual to come forward, but no one responds. Later, while Will is solving a problem on the board, Gerald sees him and reprimands him for graffitiing. Will quickly walks away. Afterward, Gerald examines the board and realizes that Will is exceptionally talented. Will heads to the Harvard bar with his friends as planned. Morgan teases him about being fired from his job as a janitor. Chucky flirts with two Harvard students, falsely claiming he has a history class with one of them. A man named Clark arrives and starts to insult Chucky, flaunting his knowledge of history. He belittles Chucky for his lack of understanding of the subject. Will intervenes in the conversation, outsmarting Clark by accusing him of plagiarizing his historical remarks and lacking originality. Clark feels embarrassed and attempts to retaliate with insults, but Will handles it well, causing Clark to back off. Later, Skylar, one of the girls Chucky was flirting with, approaches Will. She expresses her interest in him and gives him her number, suggesting they go out sometime. Gerald visits the buildings and grounds office looking for Will, only to learn that he didn't show up for work today. They mention contacting his parole officer since Will got the job through him. Will finds himself in court, defending his actions for hitting a police officer. The judge notes his record of misconduct and mentions Will's history of living in various foster homes, having been removed from 3 due to severe physical abuse. His charges are not dismissed, and his bail is set at $50,000. Afterward, he calls Skylar from jail to check on her and asks if they can hang out soon. He is then taken to meet Gerald, who offers to help him under 2 conditions. He must work harder on math and see a therapist. Will takes the therapy requirement lightly. Will works on math with Gerald, and they seem to enjoy their time together. He visits various therapists but struggles to open up, often mocking them and refusing to listen. Eventually, Gerald decides to have Will meet Dr. Sean McGuire, his college roommate, who is now a therapist. Gerald visits Sean at his workplace. They reminisce about the time that has passed since Sean's wife passed away. In another conversation, Will confides in Chucky about his probation and counseling situation. Gerald persuades Sean to take on Will as a counseling client, believing that Will's exceptional intelligence makes him worth the effort. He also points out their shared roots in South Boston. When Will meets Sean, he adopts a casual demeanor. Their conversation touches on books and fitness, revealing Will's arrogance. He comments on a painting in Sean's office, ridiculing it and making inappropriate assumptions and derogatory remarks about Sean's late wife. Sean responds seriously, reminding Will of the limits of acceptable conversation. After Will departs, Gerald sincerely tells Sean that he understands if he chooses not to see Will again, but Sean is willing to meet him the following week. That night, Sean finds himself awake, deep in thought. Meanwhile, Will spends time with Skylar, who shares details about her education and prestigious background, including her plans to attend Stanford for medical studies after graduation. They enjoy each other's company and have a pleasant time together. Will meets Sean as planned, and Sean takes him to the lake. He reflects on Will's comments about the painting, admitting that he stayed up thinking about it and realized that Will is just a kid who lacks understanding. Sean notes that Will has never left Boston. If asked about art, Will could discuss artistic literature but would struggle to describe the actual experience of being in the Sistine Chapel or the beauty of its ceiling in person. Similarly, while he could talk about women, he would never grasp the feeling of true contentment in someone's presence. If the topic were war, Will would be clueless about the reality of it. He has not experienced genuine love or loss, as he has never faced such realities. During their conversation, Sean shares that his wife died from cancer, illustrating his own understanding of loss. He is merely a frightened child attempting to appear strong. He makes assumptions about Sean's life based solely on a painting. Understanding Will's struggles, as he is also an orphan who has faced hardships, cannot be achieved by merely reading Oliver Twist. True understanding requires Will to be open and share his experiences, yet he remains too afraid to do so. After Sean leaves, Will begins to process everything. Later that evening, he attempts to call Skylar from a payphone amidst heavy rain. She answers, but he remains silent and hangs up. During their therapy session, Will sits in silence, leaving as soon as the time is up. Sean realizes that Will only speak when he feels ready. Eventually, Will engages in solving math problems, impressing Gerald with his cleverness. He finally opens up to Sean by making a joke, proudly recounting a date he had without checking in on Skylar afterward. Sean playfully calls him an amateur. Will argues that he knows what he's doing, claiming that Skylar is different from his past relationships. Sean suggests he should call her, but Will fears that getting to know her better will make their relationship mundane. Sean teases him, pointing out that his approach will lead him to live a life without truly knowing anyone, sharing anecdotes about his late wife's quirks that only he appreciated. They share a laugh, and Sean emphasizes that these small memories are what truly matter, as people choose who they allow into their lives. He reminds Will that neither he nor Skylar is perfect. They must determine if they are right for each other, which requires taking a chance. Will inquires if Sean has considered remarrying, but Sean expresses his loyalty to his deceased wife. Will turns Sean's own words against him, claiming that he will go through life without truly knowing anyone. Will visits Skylar to apologize for disappearing on her. He asks if they can go out again, but Skylar replies that she is busy with university assignments, specifically needing to analyze the proton spectrum of ibogamine. Will leaves but quickly returns with the solution to her assignment, eager to spend time with her. They go to a dog race together, where Skylar's dog competes and wins. She learns that Will grew up in South Boston and inquires about his childhood and siblings. He mentions having 12 older brothers, and Skylar expresses a desire to meet them. Will asks Sean if he regrets meeting his wife, to which Sean responds negatively, acknowledging that everything has its pros and cons. Will inquires about the moment Sean realized she was the one, and Sean recalls a specific date, demonstrating his strong memory. They met at a baseball game, and while Sean recounts the game's highlights, he admits he missed much of it because he was with his future wife. Will teases him for missing such a significant event, but Sean has no regrets about the time spent with his wife throughout his life. Will and Skylar grow closer and share intimate moments. She asks when he will show her his home and introduce her to his friends and brothers, to which he agrees. Chucky, Billy, and Morgan join Will and Skylar, sharing amusing stories and chatting, yet Will still appears hesitant to reveal his personal life to Skylar. Chucky humorously mocks him, suggesting that if she were to see his living situation, he would be discarded like a bad habit. Will successfully convinces him to hand over his car keys. Gerald meets with Sean to discuss Will, suggesting that Sean should talk to him about his future since he has received numerous job offers that align with Will's potential. However, Sean believes Will is not yet prepared. The discussion escalates into a conflict. Sean insists that Will needs to determine his own path in life, while Gerald encourages him to pursue mathematics. Gerald mentions that he sent Will to a job meeting, but Will instead sends Chucky in his place. Chucky acts nonchalantly, leaving the company representatives bewildered. Skylar inquires if Will possesses a photographic memory, given his intelligence and how effortlessly he handles challenging subjects like organic chemistry, which he studies merely for enjoyment. He attributes his academic success to his natural aptitude. Their interaction becomes more intimate. Later, Skylar shares her desire for Will to accompany her to California. The mood shifts as Will reveals his fear of abandonment, leading to a heated argument where he recounts his traumatic past. He confesses to lying about having brothers and reveals that he is an abused orphan. Skylar professes her love for him, but he coldly responds that he does not love her, leaving her heartbroken. Tom reminds Will of the importance of appreciating Gerald for his dedication. Tensions rise when Gerald inquires about the job meeting. Will claims he had a date and sent Chucky instead, which displeases Gerald. Will expresses his reluctance to spend his life explaining things to others, while Gerald urges him to show some gratitude. Will boasts about how simple the proof is for him, while Gerald struggles to solve it. In frustration, he burns the proof as Gerald sorrowfully acknowledges that Will has greater potential than he does, lamenting that Will is squandering it. Will attends a job interview with the National Security Agency, where he provides a clever and thorough explanation of why he wouldn't want to work there. Sean inquires if Will has a soulmate, to which Will responds negatively. As their conversation progresses, Will becomes defensive about the lack of respect for low-paying jobs. Sean, however, believes there is dignity in such work. He attempts to delve deeper by asking Will about his true aspirations, but Will becomes impractical once more, prompting Sean to ask him to leave due to his nonsense. Will has a bittersweet phone conversation with Skylar, calling to check on her before her departure. She expresses her love for him, but he remains silent. Alone on a bench, he watches as Skylar boards her flight to California. Meanwhile, Gerald is frustrated with Will for missing his session with Sean. At a construction site, Chucky helps Will realize that he is squandering his potential and not appreciating the intelligence he possesses. A heated argument erupts between Sean and Gerald regarding Will, with Sean defending him by highlighting Will's lifelong struggle with abandonment issues and emotional scars. Gerald insists that Will should focus on mathematics, which angers Sean, leading to a loud confrontation where they blame each other for past mistakes. Will enters the scene just as Gerald storms out. Sean mentions that he will send Will's file to the judge for assessment. They share their experiences of physical abuse, and Will reveals that he has broken up with Skylar. Sean helps Will understand that none of his past experiences were his fault, leading Will to break down and embrace Sean while crying. Later, Will rides the bus alone, reflecting on his thoughts. He meets Sean for their final session, where he shares news of a new job he secured through Gerald's help. Sean gives Will his phone number, and they share a hug. As Will turns 21, his friends surprise him with a car they built for him, and they celebrate their happiness together. Gerald meets with Sean, and they both express their apologies, moving beyond their past grievances. Will drives to Sean's house and leaves a note. Meanwhile, Chucky and the others arrive at Will's place to pick him up, only to discover he is missing. Chucky feels a sense of joy that Will has finally ventured out of his comfort zone. Sean reads the note and learns that Will has abandoned his job to visit Skylar, which brings him happiness. Will embarks on a life-affirming journey to California to start anew with Skylar, embracing the uncertainty of the future.